Alrighty, so starting on the axolotl. This is Quincy. As mentioned earlier, he's kind of named after the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl. He's an axolotl, which is a type of salamander. What's unique about them is this is what a salamander looks like in its larval stage, and axolotls never leave that larval stage. So the little branch-looking things on his head are actually his gills. It's really hard to see him thanks to the container he's in and the water right now, but he's got little legs, and he's really cute. What's really neat about him is right now he's kind of a little translucent in spots, and he's got a lot of really interesting kind of gray spots all over him. As he ages and gets older and gets larger, his colors will actually change, so he'll most likely become much darker. So I look forward to actually seeing how he looks as an adult. This is kind of the first big issue that happened with getting him. So this is the little cup that he came in, and I kept it because I use it for feeding him. One of the biggest issues with tanks, especially feeding like live foods or actual insect animals, is that any uneaten food becomes waste, and that affects quite a few different things in the tank, the biggest risk being ammonia. So what I do whenever I feed him is I take him out and put him back in the original cup that we got him in, and then we let him eat, and then he goes back in his tank. It's just a little measure to help me keep his tank clean, especially since I don't have a filter for it. But he was in that cup. I originally wanted to put him in my main fish tank, but wasn't able to because I have other fish in there, and they don't do well with other fish. The biggest thing being that he could be nipped on and have injuries, and it also kind of just causes him stress, and a stressed out axolotl doesn't normally survive long. So basically what I did was I took our old snake cage, which is over here, filled it halfway with water until I could get him a smaller tank, because he didn't need that big of a tank, especially as small as he is. He's only about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. So after having him in that tank for about 2 days, I went and got a little 10-gallon aquarium just to kind of have his own enclosure that's a little bit more manageable. But also because he's so small, I figured he didn't need a whole lot of space at first, and I could always just upgrade to a larger tank at a later time once he needs it. Had this set up for all of 2 days, and it ended up leaking, and the leak is in this corner back here. Most likely just a bad seal job. I don't know, there's no cracks or anything in the tank, so what I'm gonna end up trying to do at a later time is pick up some tank sealant, fix it up, and then either I'm gonna turn this into a homemade filter, or I'm just gonna keep it as a med tank. Med tanks are always useful and always appreciated, so I don't know, it's something to figure out at a later time. But because this one was leaking, I went and borrowed a plastic storage bin from my friends downstairs. That way I could at least get him into a home that doesn't leak water. So he's been in this for about 2 days now. Here in a little bit, around 1, there's a person selling a 50-gallon aquarium that I'm gonna go pick up because it's a lot cheaper than what I would buy at the store, and all it needs is a little bit of a cleanup. It does have rocks in it, which I don't know if I can keep those in there for now. I have to see it. But basically with axolotls, one of the things is if it can fit in their mouth, they'll probably eat it. It's why I chose a sand substrate for his tank, because if he does eat sand for any reason, it's not likely to impact his bowels, whereas if I have small rocks in there, or the substrate like what's in my main fish tank, that is something he could swallow, and it could possibly end up killing him. Not exactly something I want to happen. Regardless, with the stones in the new tank, if I'm not able to use them, I'm still going to be able to use them. It'll be part of building the actual tank for aquascaping. So right now this is a really temporary tank. As you can see, I've got mountain rocks in here. These are all rocks that actually I found while I was hiking. So have to love the Colorado mountains. Most of these are, I've got to remember the right term here. I want to say granite. I'm not sure what the kind of white one is here, but, or not white, but tan. But I liked it and I put it in. One of the big things with rocks though, and it's kind of the biggest thing I've been looking for as far as they go, is I'm looking to see if they have any banded iron in them, because that is one thing that's common in rocks up here. And I'm also making sure that they don't have any pyrite in them. Both can cause issues for the tank. The banded iron would cause rust, or basically is rust. And then I forget exactly what pyrite does underwater, but I know it leaches a particular type of toxin. I'm spacing on it. But two things to avoid in the tank. As far as the rocks go, they get boiled, scrubbed down, cleaned really well with brush and soap, boiled again, and then get a final rinse before they go into the fish tank, just to make sure that there's nothing on them that can harm the tank. Because I mean, a tank is a closed system, so anything that you put in there stays in there. And then as far as the plants that are in this tank, those are little offshoots from the plants from my main tank that have been sprouting up and growing. So, hey, plants are growing, that means it's a little bit healthy at least. These plants do okay in low light, but they really thrive under moderate to high light. Which is something I really can't have for the axolotl. So these plants will most likely go back into the main tank once I can start getting some Anubis and some other plants that do a little bit better in low to moderate light. As far as a lighting source, right now he's got my little art lamp. And I kind of have it off to the side, that way it's not directly shining in there. A lot of that's because he doesn't have eyelids. So, you know, avoiding direct bright light and still giving him some light. But yeah, that's kind of the thing going on there. Basic steps of this project for right now are, of course, later today I'm getting that 50-gallon tank and setting it up with substrate, the rocks, and some plants. I'm going to have to kind of keep the lighting system the way it is right now until I can afford to get a better light for that tank. And then I've also got to get a filter for that tank. So a lot of this is going to be playing into the big tank as well, because I've got to do some major upgrades on that. And I will talk about that here on the next video.